Hey, what's up, y'all? Happy belated Halloween. Happy somewhat belated Dia de los Muertos. It's just me, Jake, today. I've got a strange episode for you today. I've got I don't know. This is gonna get kind of meta. If you listen to the show, and you know me, you probably know that I fucking love Halloween, right? And for the last few years, I've been writing these like dumb little Dirtbag Left era audio plays every Halloween. And I was gonna do one this year, and I don't know. It became a thing where I got into a streak, I guess. And last year's was a lot of fun, and it was nice because it was helping me work through things creatively. I like to get a little personal on the show here. And it turned into something, and I'm going to explain it to you because I don't know. I like to think of myself as like a Charlie Kaufman, right? Like you start writing something, and then next thing you know, the writing is more about the writing and the process. Adaptation, if you've never seen it, great fucking film. It's about this. Because I ran into a creative brick wall 2 or 3 times throughout the course of trying to come up with this year's episode, and then it started to make me realize why that was happening, and that raised some really difficult questions, and the whole thing kind of culminated in what the kids online today call a crash out. I don't know why there's a new term for this. Very normal, common phenomena that happens. Breakdown, whatever. And I'm prone to these crash outs, and it's a fascinating thing being a person with an audience and with a job like this that I made up that doesn't actually have rules, and yet you create these self-imposed rules. So what am I trying to say? So I'm just going to take you on that adventure step by step, and then I swear to God, this somehow turned into what I think is primo content for a Halloween-themed communist podcast. We're going to get there, but we have to go on a fucking journey first. So strap in, everyone. It's a really weird one this year. It's not even a Halloween episode, honestly. It's a fucking Day of the Dead episode of Pod Damn America. Let's fucking go.
Lock them into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No. Not God Bless America. God Damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God Damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God Damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
This is a true story. It happened right here in my town 2 years ago. A lot of people die in a lot of really weird ways in this story, but you're not gonna find it in the news or anywhere like that because the police and the top people in this town were so embarrassed that they weren't able to solve it that they covered everything all up. But if you come here and ask anyone, they'll all tell you it's the same thing that I'm going to tell you now. This story starts in my school. Pod Damn America is kindergarten through 5th grade. So this one Wednesday, is like a normal day for the whole podcast. And then they had this teacher. His name was Jake. And on this day, he was going to his classroom just like every morning. But today was different. Today, none of the stupid children were there. Every other podcast had all their stupid children, even the other third grade, whatever. Okay, would you record scratch? I was gonna do weapons, right? This was the premise I had kicking around this year, and I hit a wall with this because I think originally, like, the premise being that we had this dumb joke on the show like years and years ago that I don't even personally remember the origin of. We were talking about those movies where like a teacher's like, I've got to reach these kids. And the joke was like, I've got to reach these stupid children. And then that became the thing that you call the audience, right? When we'd open the show, go, hey, what's up? Thanks for listening. Hello to the stupid children. I've got to reach these children. Okay. So weapons. All right. I was going to do something with that because the premise of weapons, if you haven't seen the fucking movie that everyone can't stop talking about, one of two of them of the year, is that all the children are missing. So I was like, okay, well, that's kind of a good way to address the anxiety that I have with this project, Pod Damn America, and media in general, audiences shifting, and the anxiety that we have about, maybe losing our audience. And the Patreon and stuff like that, it goes up, it goes down, it scares the shit out of us, listenership, alienation, all this weird stuff. Oh, should I go beg to be on fucking Hassan Piker or some shit? Will that make us podcast millionaires? Or do I try to maintain some sort of level of integrity in this horrible fucking shitty internet sphere? I don't know, right? So I was cooking with this, right? The stupid children disappeared. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, so it's broken up into all these like sections, right? It's done. One of the things that Zach Krieger said when he made Weapons is that he fucking had 3 films that he used, for inspiration. Hereditary, obviously. Magnolia. Okay, that's where the chapter by chapter thing comes from. A third movie I haven't seen yet. To his credit, maybe it's really good. I don't know. The other 2 are really good, but it's fucking derivative. So I'm like, okay, that's easy. That's easy to do. I'll write some sketches, and that'll be how everyone ends up in the same room, and then we'll end it some fucking weird way, right? And I got somewhere with this. The problem is that I don't fucking know if I know what Weapons is about. And I don't know if Weapons knows what Weapons is about, to be fucking honest with you. I'm kind of a hater. I kind of don't... I think this movie's fucking overhyped. I don't understand. I was just Googling, like, where to get... I was trying to find that opening monologue to do this little fucking spoof thing I'm doing here. And I swear to God, someone posted that it was maybe the greatest opening, like, prologue in all of science fiction. That's insane. It's very, like, what do you call it? Expository. It's just a kid kind of explaining the premise of the film. It's freaking hacky, in my opinion. It's fine that it's hacky, but greatest of all time. Insane. But anyways. So one of the things that I did that when I was toying with the idea of liking Weapons, that I did kind of take a walk with, like I gave it a little bit of credit for, is that it sounds like the intention of the artist here, Krieger, was that it's possibly dealing with addiction because he had a friend who died, one of the whitest kids guys. I think something had to do with alcohol involved. I didn't look into it. I don't care, but that seems like maybe there's something going on there. It was like a drunk driving accident or something like that. And it's an interesting reading of the film, I think. Your shitty aunt moves in, all of a sudden your parents are zombies. Like this person looks like a fucking creepy mess turns people into zombies. Okay, there's something going on here with like substances, right? Great. So I started writing like sketches out, and I was trying to make them funny, and I got through one that I think was pretty funny. It was like it was a guy driving around, and he gets pulled over by a cop, and the cop as, hey, what do you know how fast you're going back there or whatever, pal. And then he sees that he's got like weed or something and smoking and drinking in the car, and he's about to arrest him, right? And then he touches the car door, right? He gets into like cop mode. He's going to reach for his gun. He goes to touch the car door, and when he touches the car door, the thing happens where he pretends to have a fentanyl overdose, the thing that cops have been doing for the last fucking 5-6 years for whatever reason, from touching a car door that like had fentanyl on it or whatever. And then it elevates, like joke wise, into now he's high on the fentanyl, and he wakes up and he's like, damn, that was good fentanyl, that he believes was real even though it wasn't. And he starts going to the guy like, hey, listen, do you know where I can get some more of this car door? And then it turns into them like the guy's got to go like, oh, I got a plug. I got a guy I can call. He's going to bring another car door. And then they're sitting around and they're hitting the car door. And they became making myself laugh. That doesn't mean it's funny. I'm an idiot. But I think there were some legs here, right? So I'm cooking and I'm like, this fucking thing between the cop and the kid, it's pretty funny. And then that'll be, they'll end up in the fucking weapons house. And then me and Anders will be looking for what's causing all the stupid children to disappear. And we're going somewhere. And then I hit a fucking wall. And okay, so part of the creative wall I hit here is entirely external, right? We live in a world that is quickly folding into a worse place to be at all times. I make enough money to get by. Things have been getting pretty bad over the last year. As soon as like the tariffs hit and everything, I worked multiple jobs, hours got cut, this thing started to compound, debt that I can't pay off and stuff. And I fucking have been applying for like jobs for 2 straight years out on the West Coast here, fucking going, why the fuck did I move here? And I got one. So I landed something, and when I got it, the way things work, is the employer gets to tell you, fuck you, do whatever I say right now, or else maybe I'll give this job to somebody else, right? You're kind of at these people's mercy. So it was a really stressful moment for me, and I was like, shit, okay. And I dropped everything, and I started working on this thing. And I don't know, should be a pretty good gig. It's all working out so far. But like, it was fucking, I had to juggle like a bunch of shit all at the same time. So like, in order to get a bunch of my friends together and fucking make one of these dumb little audio plays, it actually takes a lot of like coordinating and like just making sure people respond to emails, getting if one person just doesn't do it, then I'm like, I gotta recast the character and all this stuff. These things are dumb, and they take so much fucking work. So I was like, oh shit, like I don't know what I'm gonna do here. I have 24 hours in a day and a certain amount of things to do. And honestly, it became like a pile of laundry in my fucking room that I didn't want to do anything with. And I started pacing around and going, fucking every day it gets worse that I'm not working on this. And part of it was that I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to commit to fucking weapons, because I am a weapons hater. I don't know. So I couldn't creatively figure out what I wanted to do with this. I'm like, do I want to bash it? I don't fucking hate it. I don't want to fucking make something that makes it sound cool. Like, I don't love it. And I don't know really what I think it's about and what I'm trying to write about with it. And part of that is because I did get on this thing where I was thinking it was about substances and addiction. And I almost thought, this is it. I'm going to tackle this fucking really interesting thing this year. And like, I just read my buddy Mishka Shubaly's book, well, not his book, but his book that he helped Mark Lanigan, the guy from Screaming Trees, write about his like descent into heroin, and it's been on my mind a lot. Mishka's a sober guy. I have lots of friends who are sober. I have lots of friends who aren't. I variously both of those things sometimes at different times, and there's been this like eternal kind of question about what. There's been like a fucking like that the question of substance use, if you take it seriously at all, it haunts you for fucking ever if you are conscious of it. If you're a fucking normal person, I don't know, maybe not, But I have trouble with it because I don't think it is as simple as anyone on any side of the spectrum really gives it credit for being. Or really, it's not as simple as people want it to be. Whether you are in AA, whether you are just like, fuck it, life's short, we're going to die. Whether you're really well sort of balanced about these things, whether you're like someone who does sobriety sometimes and other times doesn't. That's kind of where I'm at. And when you get older, not that I think fucking internet people are freaks, whether you're chopped unk when you're 23 or whatever. But the older you get, you see people make decisions about this sort of stuff that are semi-permanent or aren't, but they seem that way, where they sort of assert that they're looking at it that way. And, it gets more real. And I like drugs and alcohol. And, I've kind of considered for a long time that, like, I don't know. I do this sort of thing where I consider it maintenance to take some time off every now and then, especially as someone who like works with alcohol, a bartender. You have to be the best person at drinking in the room when you are a bartender. If you're not, you can fuck up your career, you can fuck up your life. But I had something interesting happen where during all this, I watched Ken Burns' Prohibition, like the documentary series he did on Prohibition, and I got really into it. I found it really fascinating. It's something like, I don't know, at some point on the show, we'll probably dig into some of these stories as they relate to, who knows, who knows, maybe there's something coming down the pike that will be a perfect reason to do an episode of a fucking podcast about Prohibition. I don't know, maybe they'll prohibit something, maybe they'll bring it back, I don't know. Trump's fucking sober. It's really interesting, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know a lot of sober people that don't even subscribe to it because it's kind of a cult, and that's kind of where I landed with it. It's very much of like, it's like a new religion. It's like a new secular religion that is a product of this era. But to know the history of it's very interesting. It came about in like the 1930s in the Great Depression at the end of the era of Prohibition, which stretched from like the Civil War through fucking FDR. And in the middle of all this weird like civil war of how to live life that occurred in singularly this fucking country, a place that it only could play out this way, this fucking weird like occult thing popped up where someone figured out how to survive the historical circumstances that they were in by putting this fucking wizard ass triangle thing on a wall anonymously here and there and go fucking come meet in the back of this underground thing if you find yourself in the seamy underworld of people who like need to like to do this, to navigate the world. And it has all this weird magical thinking type shit in it, and it's interesting, but it's interesting in a way here's another fucking layer to throw on this. Something can be really interesting and really valuable without having maybe the correct conclusion. And this is something that I've thought about a lot as someone who thinks of themselves as a fucking Marxist, as a communist, as a whatever-ist, living in America, in the imperial core where all of the things, right, all the media and culture, which are things I'm obsessed with. This is like my area of focus, right? This is why I've been reading fucking Chomsky and Marshall McLuhan and shit all year. All that stuff is formed by liberal ideology, which I don't agree with. And I find sometimes this thing where I notice people that are into left stuff realize something is liberal and they throw the whole thing out together. And I go, I get what you're saying, but everything we consume is liberal because we live in an epoch of liberalism. So you have to learn to meticulously and critically consume things with the thought in mind that you probably won't agree with the conclusion, but there's still like good stuff in there. Because if you go, I'm never going to read a liberal book or watch a liberal documentary, you'll never read a book again. There's only so many fucking communist books, and there's topics that aren't broached because by that amount of books because we're talking about stuff that's happening rapidly now as history unfolds in fucking America and in a world that's ruled by capitalism, right? Still with me? I thought about this when I watched this Ken Burns documentary because I was like, Ken Burns is a fucking lib. He hangs out with Barack Obama. He has a weird bowl haircut, right? But you should still watch his shit because he's a meticulous researcher and there's plenty of data in what he puts together in these narratives that you can take and use for your own purposes, right? And so the more I thought about that, the more I realized you can talk to these fucking AA people without joining their cult. And I have a friend who's really into AA and all this shit, is always trying to get me to fucking hang out with all these people and stuff and like read the books and stuff. And it occurred to me as I was starting to get to a point where I was like, this fucking shit is starting to become kind of hazardous in my life. And I was like, wait a minute. You can just go talk to these fucking people and learn their ideas the same way you go watch a Ken Burns documentary without the intention of becoming Ken Burns or agreeing with him at the end of the fucking day, right? Because he's not a communist. And I met a friend of mine in a fucking diner and I explained all this and they were like, yeah, you're allowed to do that. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I kind of assumed you weren't. And that's part of this whole fucking journey is like, that's addict brain in itself is like assuming this exclusion from shit. And they're like, no, fucking ask me anything. And I started learning some really interesting things, right? In particular, one of the metaphors in the fucking Great Depression Alcoholics Anonymous book that stuck out to me was this metaphor about a boy whistling in the dark, right? So what they say is this thing happens if you are an addict and you are feeling insane while you're using drugs or alcohol or whatever, so you quit, and then when you get sober, you still feel insane, right? Is that you realize that you are like the proverbial boy whistling in the dark. So someone who is just in a pitch blackness wandering around realizes the direness of that situation and whistles to entertain themselves and to keep themselves distracted. And then the book has this call to action that's like, so join us in our weird fucking triangle occult symbol room thing and do a bunch of public speaking and get into a fucking circle jerk about it. And that doesn't really seem like the path for me, but this metaphor stuck out to me because at one point when I was having a really not good time with substances, I wrote the same thing, and that's how you know something has some truth to it, right? Is it's like an archetypal, like reproducible thing, something that will be invented all over the world by different people because they come to the same conclusion. And the way I wrote this last summer was when I accidentally smoked some meth, or accidentally snorted some meth. I thought it was coke. I tweeted, being sober sucks, being fucked up sucks, there's got to be a third thing. That's it. That's the boy whistling in the dark. They all suck, and there is nothing you can do about that. There's no like solution that if you just do a thing, then all of a sudden you are better. There are more and more layers of the fucking onion. It never stops. And actually, I think it's a really good point, and I think it undermines how AA people maybe think. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's fucking listeners who are sober people are everywhere. Tell me what you think about this if you're wrong, or if I'm wrong, if you think I'm wrong, rather. But all of this made me think about something that happened here on the show last year, which is that we talked to Jesse Sandejo, the guy from one of my favorite fucking crusty folk punk bands, Days and Days, right? And he told this story, And I thought about it long after we finished recording, and I had this thing that happens when you're a podcaster where you go, fuck, I should have said this when we were recording, but it just didn't like occur to me at the time, and I've been kind of carrying it around ever since, which is that I think the most important part of that conversation is that he told us this story about a Nazi who emailed him, and he was like, why did a Nazi email me? What's he getting out of my music that caused a Nazi to think that I would want to have a conversation with him? And I thought about it, like I said, like an hour later, and it really occurred to me, it's actually pretty easy, which is that Days and Days' music is all of this rumination about alcohol, and it's very deliberate. It's not something that, it's, oh my God, I never knew that Billy Joel drank a fucking giant Franzia box of wine every 30 minutes between fucking playing shows. It's not like that sort of thing. Fucking Days and Days is about booze. It takes the fucking thing head on, and it ruminates, and it turns this question over and over again in a fucking like dialectical way, like in a fucking way where it revolves it around and around and around, and it goes around from questions of whether this is an external problem, right? Life's a game, life's a joke, that sort of thing. Fucking why not go for broke? And it turns it back around to it being an internal problem, which, why do I do this to myself? Great song, right? For the fucking 5 people who listen to folk punk. And that like dialectical thing, that little contradiction, that little unsolvable fucking yin yang thing of whether things are external or internal, and where you land in relation to external forces and internal forces, that is a common like problem for everyone, everywhere, not just with alcohol, but just with like philosophy, just with existence itself. And those are exactly the problems that someone who eventually comes to the conclusions of National Socialism is trying to fucking solve, and they come to the wrong conclusions, right? But they're thinking about the same things as the rest of us. That's what you should say to a fucking Nazi. If a Nazi comes up to you and they say, hey, what you're doing speaks to me, why do you think that is? Is you go, well, we have the same fucking problems, and you just came up with a solution that is, being a Nazi. Like, it's fucking wrong, right? And I guess the reason that I don't quite agree with a lot of people that land on the side of sobriety, and especially AA and the fucking cult of it all, is that I think that there's a lot of surrender in that ideology to making things entirely internal, right? All of their rhetoric is, the problem is me, and obviously that's fucking part of the equation here. I don't disagree, but I think it's a little bit like fucking psychiatry, which is something I know I talk about on this show a lot, and diagnoses and the freedom that you get from like responsibility and the way you trick yourself out of the stress of this fucking problem, of this unfucking definable, unanswerable problem of existence, with the internal and external forces and you in the middle, right? There's also this question to me of like why people make decisions to change their lives and to quote unquote fix, themselves or whatever. And like a lot of it doesn't seem to be productive or like to get to make anything happen except for to like alleviate social pressure. And something I've been thinking about a lot is like when I first started doing comedy, I would say like I'm crazy a lot. It was kind of like a recurring like mantra of like I'm fucking crazy, right? And I noticed after a while that like as I became more of a fucking Z-list micro celebrity on the internet, like I had to stop saying that, because if I constantly am reiterating I'm crazy, and then anyone disagrees with me or wants to get one over me on me in any way, they go, don't listen to him, he's crazy. And it's like, that's not fair. You're saying don't listen to him, he's fucking honest, because everyone's crazy, right? But that happens with like substance abuse too, or substance use in general, just substances, because like this is something that happens to me a lot is people say, oh, don't listen to him, he drinks alcohol, as if it's like not the most fucking common thing in the fucking world, and as if everyone isn't doing it all the time, and every fucking celebrity fucking podcaster bullshit influencer, isn't full of cocaine all the fucking time. But we have these like curated images that we put forth, so no one kind of talks about this stuff like transparently, because it turns into like fucking steroids in baseball, where like, well, if one person curates their image to be this fucking thing, then everyone has to keep up with it, or else anyone can be discredited at any point by you being accused of being a fucking like person who drinks beer, And I call bullshit on that, and I think it's, more important to be honest and dare say, like, the point of everything, because if you're not being honest, then it's all just fucking about personal gain, and at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter because you're going to die. And this temptation to just go, well, I'll just fucking fix this problem by, by subscribing to this, like, system of operating, I mean... The end result of that is that this fucking industry I work in is full of dry drunks. It's full of some of the worst people I've ever met in my fucking life are sober. Don't get me wrong, some of the worst people I've ever met in my life are full of fucking booze and drugs too. But a lot of them are people who deliberately are using sobriety to curate their identities like this. And that's, to me, that doesn't seem like a huge solution to me the way I think it does to them, because to them the problem was how people perceive them, not how they feel or something larger existentially. And I totally get why people do things like this, because if it's the only way to survive, or if it's if you don't feel compelled to live your life a certain way because you're not a fucking like narcissistic, egotistical fucking podcast comedian artist type who feels compelled to keep digging every fucking day, great, you're probably fucking right, but no one really knows what the right answer is, and there isn't a singular right answer for everyone or anyone. So I can't really ride with these people because I see them as doing something similar to ideologically where people land when faced with questions about society and history and economics and stuff like that, which is they land on one side, and then we find ourselves, right, most people are idealists, we find ourselves as materialists on the other side going, no, it's this other way, and that's kind of fucking stupid too, because you can be a reductionist about that, and ultimately the wisest conclusion at all times is that it's all fucking jumbled up together in this unanswerable fucking swirly dialectical thing, right? Tell me if I sound fucking insane right now. So this is where I got with trying to fucking write a weapons spoof, is I got this deep out into like the philosophical realm, and it's I haven't begun to scratch the surface of this massive fucking thing I decided to tackle, and I can't even fucking talk about it in plain old like terms like I'm trying to now, much less try to create a piece of art about it. Maybe art is how you get at things like this. I don't know. But for whatever reason, it didn't fucking happen. And part of the other reason that didn't happen is that I wasn't just dealing with like my own issues. Addiction is a social thing. And I was finding myself compelled to write about people in my life, and didn't feel good about it because I don't really like doing that as a creative type. I don't think other people's business, is, there are some people who feel like that's like a virtue as a fucking writer, to just consume everyone around you. And I think it's like morally sucks. I don't think it's that good, like creates that good of content all the time. Although I did kind of feel like it was the way to go here. But that's why I didn't want to do it. And I got really stressed out with this creatively as a question, and also with all this stuff that's frankly been happening in my life that I can't tell you about, which is a fucking problem for me creatively. I refuse to fuck over people like that. So you just got to take my word for it. Some really fucked up things have happened in my life that just are connected to other people. So I just don't want to fucking, if it was all me, I'll fucking sit here all day and tell you everything I've ever fucking done for, entertainment, because I've chosen that path. It sucks. My rib cage is ripped open. It's all over the fucking internet. Everyone has a lot of fun with it. It's fucking insane, but it's kind of philosophically against my creative method. But you got to just take my word for it. I'll give you this at least piece of information. Someone in my life died this year, and it was like an asteroid crashed into a bunch of shit that I was trying to build. That's a bad metaphor. It was like 10,000 spoons when all you need is a knife. I don't know. It was really like the timing was incredible. It fucked everything up and is also very sad because it's always the best fucking person, right? It's never, Tim Dillon or something. It's the best fucking person is who the universe decides to take. So, dealing with all this shit, and at the last minute, I got really freaked out that I was, this is just a creative dead end. And then I'm just like, you know what? If you don't feel 100% with something, and it's fucking Halloween's coming up in a week, use just time. Turn it around, fucking do something else. This happens sometimes when you're trying to make a thing, right? So I went, you know what? Throwing this fucking thing in the trash. I'm going to start over. Maybe something else will just call out to me. So it's Halloween, right? It's fucking spooky season. It's the month where you watch horror films. And I wear my jack-o'-lantern-ass shirt. And so I'm watching a bunch of horror films. And I decided to watch one that I hadn't seen in a long time. I don't really remember it since I was a kid, but I remembered like something about it. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I just decided to go through a bunch of the John Carpenter films that I maybe missed because he's got a big catalog. And let me tell you, they're all over the fucking place. He's made some of the best films of all time, the best horror films, some of the best films, you could argue. And some of these are real clunkers, which is fine because it's like inherent to the genre and like it's fun when they're corny and stuff. But anyways, long story short, I watched Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a really interesting thing that exists in the history of this genre of movies. Because basically my understanding is what happened is he made Halloween on a shoestring budget. It becomes this cultural phenomenon, right? Everyone knows the lore of it. Maybe don't. Like, there's all these interesting factoids. Like, they just came up with the fucking weird mask that the guy wears, just by happenstance. It's like a bleached William Shatner mask. It's like a William Shatner Star Trek mask. Like, I don't know, this looks weird. They put it on the guy's head. He's wearing a jumpsuit. He's got a knife. The film's very minimalist, and it turns out to be dynamite, right? It happens at a point in film history before they had done a certain amount of things, so it establishes all these techniques and ideas and stuff that then go on to like define the genre. Fucking banger, obviously. So then they make Halloween 2. It's like the return of Michael Myers. Makes fucking sense, right? But then this thing happened where if you watch 1 and then 2 and then you watch 3 has nothing to do with Michael Myers. It's just this weird ass story about a TV commercial that it just sort of persists throughout the whole film, and it's counting down the days to Halloween, and it's selling these children's Halloween masks, and it's like from this ominous like company in the outside of town somewhere, and this like plot unfolds where this like weird 80s actor guy with a mustache decides to take it upon himself to figure out what the fuck is going on with these masks. And it's like hilarious. A fucking bad movie, but like it's fun, and it's a cult classic for that reason. There's people that ride real hard for it. I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of not. It has some really interesting like visual stuff, and it is haunting in a weird way. But it's just weird because it's no Michael Myers in it, and you did 2 films in a row establishing that Halloween would be like Friday the 13th. That Jason is in all of them. Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy's in all of them. And I guess the story is what happened here is that John Carpenter wanted to he just wanted to turn Halloween itself into like an anthology, like Black Mirror type thing, where every installment is a different isolated story, which is weird after doing 2 in the beginning that are consistent themselves. But he's just fuck it. He was like, fuck it, Season of the Witch. The 3rd one is Season of the Witch. There's a nod to Michael Myers in it, where like someone in the movie is watching Halloween the movie, which is kind of fun. Love it when horror films do that. But yeah, it's kind of meta, right? In that way. And so I started thinking about this and I was like, wait a minute, this is the metaphor. Like there's so much going on here with regard to the creative process. I'm going to make fucking Halloween episode this year, Season of the Witch, right? That'll be a fucking curveball. No one will see that coming. And so, you know, I started like writing and stuff, and it really worked because I was feeling such a creative, like such a writer's block, such a like a creative like anxiety, that there's this thing that happens throughout the movie that kind of that became part of the process. And I was
8 more days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 8 more days to Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
So then I start thinking, like, is this okay though? Like, is this like, are you allowed to do this? Like, is this gonna fucking, are people gonna understand if you get this fucking meta with a creative thing? Or is it like, I don't know, like I do this show with Anders and we have like a pretty good 50-50 creative agreement, but I don't fucking, there's stuff he's really into that I'm not. There's stuff I'm really into that he's not. I'm like, is this fucking insane? I start to doubt myself, you know, and like, I mean, there's just always this question. The economy now is, can you get a few hundred people to fucking be your patrons, you know, to fund you? So there's, now I'm back at fucking weapons. Like, there's part of this that I start to fucking spiral out about real hard, and just like, gotta start to doubt and go like, is this got legs? Can I do Halloween 3 and make it about something, or make it about being about something? Should I be talking about fucking politics? Do I have some sort of like, you know, responsibility to that? Sometimes people are, you know, you have an audience. People like demand things of you because they go, hey, I understand you to be this thing. I understand you to be that thing. And I started to get really freaked out because, like, you know, this turned into like a group like project. But way back when I first started this, I was very adamant to start what's called a like low concept project, because podcasts can be, you know, every week we do this segment, we do this segment, we do this segment. It's fucking done. We have a guest. They do certain things every time, right? Those are fun. Like, they're, you know, there's a reason there's success to those sorts of projects. But I'm a low concept person because, you know, I want it to not be breaking the rules. If you have the weirdest idea ever and you go, well, we have a platform for that, put it on the fucking platform. So literally if you listen to the show, you probably are aware it's a pretty mixed bag, and it's for that fucking reason. So I started to spiral out about this, which is weird because I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This is my thing. I made it, you know? There's other people connected to it, and there's some tenuous sense of like, you know, don't do something that would fuck over that person in a way. But I don't know. I started to kind of go, why am I building rules for myself? You might notice this show doesn't come out always on the same day of the week. That's fucking by design. Because I don't want to fuck myself over by going, the show comes out on Monday and then get a job where I work Mondays, and then now we have a conflict. But I still let those things creep into my head because I'm a person who lives in a world that is greater than me, and there are things I cannot change, and whatever, right? And we're all victims of fucking ideology and whatever they say in AA, but everything, right? And so I'm like, fuck, I'm fucking doing it. Ah!
2 more days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 2 more days to Halloween, Silver Shamrock. 2 more days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 2 more days to Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Anyways, so I think something that I've kind of always excelled at is like the personal essay. I get a lot of good feedback when I do sort of like talk like this about life. And I was having a conversation with someone recently about this show, about PDA, and about what they said that they like about it. Because I was fucking thinking, like, what do I do here? What is my show? You know, how do I fucking cope with this? This fucking writer's block, what the hell is happening? And they said something that I really appreciated, which is they said, well, you know, a lot of podcasts you listen to and they're like good for information, right? And they're great, but they're, you know, they're just information, and they, you know, they're kind of boring. And then there's like this parasocial thing that everyone is, you know, it's the new it's the new flesh, right? It's the new fucking entertainment. Is you watch Hassan and you watch fucking Gooba Gaba and you watch Didi and you're like, oh my god, Didi and Gooba Gaba are dating now, and like, you know, and it's just other people's lives, and that's fun too. Until one day you sort of wake up and you go, who the fuck are these people and why do I care about their, you know, like you kind of break yourself of it, and it has a limit to it, right? There's limits to that too. And she was, and they were like, doesn't matter. They were like, well, your show, it kind of does both, and it's nice to balance that out, and also it connects the two. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. It connects the things, because whenever I try to write about my life, the point of it isn't that I'm so fucking interesting, right? The point is that there's something to glean here from these things that you get in a literary sense, through a literary lens. They connect to the greater experience that we're all having, and that shit connects to, eventually, it's pretty easy to get there usually, why you should be a fucking communist, why you should look at things this way, why you should go out and vote for Zoran or whatever, right? And I think it's a pretty worthwhile thing to do creatively, in my opinion. So I'm thinking about all this, and I'm like, oh shit, you know what? There is a fucking story here that's kind of interesting, or that maybe I just need to put into a thing to process, which is the answer to the question, why the fuck are you so obsessed with Halloween? Why do you go completely fucking insane every Halloween? How much of this is internal, right? To give these goddamn AA people a little credit. So the answer to that, I mean, there's no one answer. People that are like me that are into all this goth shit, I don't know, man. Fucking, a friend of mine compared us to like the goth version of I guess the October version of like Disney adults at one point, and I was like, oh fuck you, because that's, he had kind of a point there. But like, you know, why you're into this aesthetic, who knows? There's probably some way something deep down in your soul and how you love pop culture and stuff that relates to that. But I think I figured out why I go crazy every Halloween, which is that, so I was already like this, and I met someone in my life years ago, way the fuck back, early days of this show, multiple podcast friends and lovers ago, and and we bonded over being into all this fucking Halloween shit and loving horror films and loving this time of the year. And we lived in Brooklyn, and a number of insane things happened in our lives, and we had a really powerful but abrupt a great relationship that ended abruptly in the middle of absolute utter fucking chaos that I'm trying to write a book about, but it's just kind of an eternal thing. Anyway, and a lot of things led to that breakup, but part of it was that Halloween was coming up, and I had developed kind of a coke problem, and I was a little bit too on coke, and other things were all twisted up in this, but I distinctly remember having this problem where I just kind of couldn't, I'd fail to show up for stuff, because I was recovering from a thing I was doing that I thought was for fun, but it was probably to cope, which is a thing you can do for fun, by the way. I have to interject every time I talk about this and go, don't listen to these fucking dare people, just say no, right? Drugs are fucking complicated. No one knows the answer to them. But this, at this point in my life, was getting out of hand, and right when things were getting pretty bad in this relationship, and maybe someone was looking to make a decision, I fucked up Halloween. And I did it to myself. And so for like fucking tons of Halloweens since this, I've had this massive anxiety to do Halloween right, and I think part of it is me reliving this fucked up traumatic experience and wanting to correct it this time, but then getting really stressed out about it and doing it again. And it's weird because Halloween isn't that cool. It's just a night that you put on a dumb costume, and most of the fucking props you get for it are like on the internet and on Instagram, and then you go out and you get drunk somewhere and life moves on. But I get FOMO about it real fucking bad. to the point where it's turned me throughout the month of October every year into this weird, mournful like person that is kind of interesting in its own way, because that is the vibe of the season, I suppose. And you do kind of have to just embrace like traumatic shit like that, because it's going to visit you no matter what. So if it's going to visit you, you can either engage with it or be blindsided by it. And that is kind of my grand theory of why people become edgelord comedians. Why is every comedian at a fucking open mic trying to make a joke about being molested, right? It's that. Literally, God, me and my friend Lena went to an open mic last year, and it was like I counted like 9 guys in a row, all molestation jokes. But anyway, okay, so this is getting complicated, but this is all happening, and I think I figured it out, and figuring it out doesn't really do anything.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horathon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween.
So I crashed out pretty hard on Halloween and I missed it. And I did the thing that I was obsessed with doing, and then felt horrible and mad at myself. And I don't know. And so I also still did not have a fucking episode of this podcast to go, and our schedule got kind of weird, so we did one like a bonus episode like a few days like the day before. Again, made up rules, like none of these things have to happen on certain days. We were just like, okay, well, we're doing this one then. And I kind of thought, well, okay, you have the whole weekend to do this, to put something out and to recover and get your life together. I talked to a couple of people about this, and people said, oh, it's Halloween all weekend. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just a fucking purist, but I think if Halloween's on a Friday, the rest of the weekend is Day of the Dead. I was proven wrong. I went outside a few times, and there were people doing Halloween shit, but it's not like the fucking thing, right? So I slept through most of the weekend anyway, and just, I don't know. My mind fell apart. Like, I physically was here to do this, and I just couldn't. I bought Hades 2, and fucking that game, holy shit. If you ever need to, like, get off of heroin or something, it was pretty good. It was pretty good methadone. So I kind of sweated all this out, and I kind of just let time pass, and Sunday, I dragged myself out of the house and went out and kind of remembered that I'm in Los Angeles and it's Dia de los Muertos. I saw some really excellent shit in Los Angeles. I saw a pretty good mariachi band, a young one who did a joke about the millennial pause in between songs, which was really weird. I guess I'm chopped unk for that one or whatever. Ugh. I rode my bike to a rooftop where some things were happening. Random guy took a pretty cool picture of me. I went and I saw the candles on the ofrendas and things like that. Watched a lot of music. Thought about my dead friends. And I cried into a fucking burrito. And I ate the burrito. And then, as I was like putting my life back together and resolving various external conflicts and things, and getting ready to sit down and try to figure out what the fuck to do here for this episode, and I realized this has been like in an hour. This is the intro. I'm sorry. Something occurred to me. Or I found something. I was randomly scrolling on social media, and a story jumped out at me from a person I'd He's just like a weird internet leftist cool guy who I follow on stuff. I don't know, he might listen. If he does, hit me up and I'll shout you out next time, but I don't want to blow up anyone's spot. Actually, I'm sure a lot of people have posted this. It's just one of those stories. When I saw it, I was like, damn, this is like the Deus Ex Machina. This is like a gift from a fucking angel if you have writer's block about what to put on your Halloween-themed communist podcast. A story I had never fucking heard just appeared to me, and I read into it, and it's like fucking primo dynamite for the exact premise of this show. So I'm gonna tell you it a little bit, and then I'm gonna end the podcast. But it's this is the main event. This is the actual episode. We're gonna talk about the time the CIA faked a vampire attack. Okay, welcome to the show. I'm Jake Flores.
Lock them into positions of hope.
Okay, I'm Jake. Anders J. Lee is not here. He's, I don't know where he is. He was, I saw a picture of him though. He was Grand Platinum for Halloween. He did it. So let's talk about this thing that happened. So the CIA faked a fucking vampire attack in the Philippines right after World War II. Let's start in the Philippines. There's a guy named Luis Mangalus Taruk. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right because this is a mixture of Spanish names and one of the many languages they speak in the Philippines. The Philippines is made up of 7,000 islands and has a lot of languages, and Tagalog is, I guess, like the most common one, but I don't know why I'm explaining that, as if that wasn't the case, I'd be speaking Filipino fluently or whatever, Tagalog. But yeah, I'm going to mangle a lot of the details and dialects and stuff of this story. You get the point, though. So there was this guy, Luis Mangalus Taruk, right? His thing is he is a really interesting fucking revolutionary figure from history that I learned about through this story. He was a sort of peasant unionist who rose through like the 1930s agrarian sort of socialist movement and eventually into World War II as part of this vanguard army against the Japanese called the Hooks. The Hooks were short for, here we go, Hukbalahap or Hukbo Bayan Laban Sa Hapon, or what that is in English is so the Hook is short for Hukbalahap. They were the People's Army against the Japanese, is what that means in English. And he became like the guy, right, in the Philippines during the resistance. And this is a really interesting story to read because whenever you read about it from dumb fucking people with an imperialist point of view that don't even understand it. A lot of them are like ex-soldiers and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff is in declassified CIA documents. So they tell a story that you have to decode a little bit, which is that obviously he was the fucking guy and the Hooks were badass at fighting the Japanese. And then when the United States decided it's now anti-communist after allying with them against the Japanese, things start to unfold and they start to try to push out the Hooks, right? Anyways, People's Army against the Japanese, fucking badass. Luis Taruk, he had some nicknames. He was called Lulu, which I think is funny. Like he's a Labubu or Luigi Mangione. He was also called the Racing One, and then something called Alipato, which means the flying spark that spreads a fire. And that was, I guess, the one that it's in all the books about him and stuff like that. I think Nelson Mandela wrote about him a lot and shit like that. Anyways, so yeah, he led the Hooks through this united front between the socialists and the communists in the Philippines, and you know everything's fucking triumphant as they beat back the Japanese, but the Philippines is like decimated. There's the Bataan Death March and things like that, and the U.S. establishes as part of its like reconstruction that it wants parity in the government as they rebuild it, right? it has this policy where it's obviously wants its interests to be served as it oversees the rebuilding of the state, and you have to decode all this stuff when you read it. If you're an American and you're a fucking person who lives in imperialism and stuff like that. But obviously this is like a puppet government. The United States sets up many such cases, right? And their thing is now they hate the Hooks. Taruk and other Hooks are elected to the House of Representatives post the war. But the U.S.-backed puppet government, backed by this guy Manuel Rojas, I think is how it's pronounced. It's Roxas, which is the name from Kingdom Hearts, but it's Rojas, I think. A lot of this is, I guess, is just Spanish. There's a great David Tell joke. Show me an Asian guy who can dance, I'll show you a Filipino. It's a good way to understand the cultural background we're dealing with here. But anyways, so Roxas, President Roxas blocks them from taking their seats in Congress after they're democratically elected, right? So he ousts them. They're now enemies of the CIA. They're guerrillas again. This is not a democratic government. And by the way, you should see pictures of some of these presidents from the Philippines from this era. They have like top hats and shit. They look insanely evil. And the Hooks look fucking cool. So now that this is all going on, right? The United States decides that it needs to send in a guy to personally solve this problem with the goddamn Hooks. Enter Edward Geary Lansdale. So Edward Geary Lansdale was an ad executive who then joined like the war during World War II and went from being a fucking evil madman guy to joining the Air Force and, more importantly, the OSS, the Office of Secret Services, which is the precursor to the CIA. And he's in it as it becomes the CIA. It's all the same shit, right? He gets sent to Vietnam and does some evil shit there. I'm sure there's plenty more to read about. There's all these declassified documents about him. There's tons of stuff. He's got one of those careers that spans the whole fucking story. But eventually he gets sent to the Philippines to fight the Hooks. And this is all happening during this thing called the 1946 Philippine Trade Act. So basically, the way the process I was just describing went down is that the Philippines was devastated, and there's the U.S.-friendly Rojas president, and he signs this deal, which the way the story is told, which you have to fucking decode, is that the Philippines had all these resources, right? They had oil, but they didn't have the infrastructure to drill the oil and to extract it, and so they needed to attract investors, but they had this pesky law that you're not allowed to sell parts of the country to other countries, right? And this is told as if it's like, why would they do that? That's so mean or whatever. It limited their growth, right? Obviously, the real story here is that they wanted to fucking drill the oil themselves and keep the value themselves, and the United States and the CIA were like, no, we're going to overthrow you and install fucking BP Oil or Exxon or whatever the hell company, multinational companies. So the way the Philippine Trade Act, tells the story is that they signed this deal that allows the United States to have its, like, in the law of the new government, parity is the $10 word or whatever. And that means that, the United States is allowed to extract it. The part of the value of the state of the Philippines becomes part of the U.S. government. So the Hooks, right, have recently fought off the Japanese, right, after living as Filipinos through the history of being colonized by Spain. So they see this happening. They're also being undemocratically ousted from their elected positions. They see this all happening. They go, okay, this is a problem. So we should probably fight against this government because it did nothing. Just hundreds of years of colonization, right? I don't know that much about the Philippines. I do remember from reading some books about policing, though, that this era of U.S. occupation in the Philippines is where they established a lot of laws that came home and became part of our modern policing in the United States, which I think is a pretty good reason to bring up a Zoran Mamdani quote that is being trotted out to try to make him look too fucking scary and radical, which is that he said a few years ago that if the NYPD has its boot on your neck, it's laced with the laces of the IDF. That is absolutely the same fucking process that is happening here. It happens all over the place. Good piece of wisdom to take with you, right? They fucking practice this shit out when they're colonizing, and then it comes home, and it's going to come home and kill us all. They've been apparently drones that they used that the IDF used that have been spotted in America. You'll see them at the next protest, I'm sure. So, Edward Geary Lansdale, right? He shows up on the scene and he decides to use this thing that he's developed or like been part of or privy to in the European theater in Vietnam or wherever the fuck else he was, which is referred to variously as Psy-War by the CIA, PsyOps by everyone on the internet, psychological warfare, right? That's his big thing. He decides is going to turn the tide against the Hooks. Something that he apparently developed or was part of or privy to in Europe was this thing where, this is actually pretty funny. Like, this is one of those things where, like, if it was used for good, fucking hilarious. Or it was used for good, I guess, rather. Sorry, in this instance. But now he's using it against communists. So they would take these megaphones in World War II and just like call out individual Nazis' names and just fucking like, so you're in the battlefield and someone's just like Anders J. Lee, right? And they would just target you and just say like, you're gonna fucking die if you don't surrender. And there's no real like reasoning there that that doesn't really do anything specifically to endanger that person other than announce to that person that you know who they are and you know where they live and stuff like this. And they would, I guess, dox Nazis and stuff, which is great, right? But yeah, so they started doing stuff like this against the Hooks. That's bad. One of the things that they would do is fucking take a plane and fly over like the, you know, wherever the fuck the Hooks were and just like cast curses basically in Tagalog in the local language, because they believed that, you know, the locals in the Philippines were superstitious. So they'd say, you know, a Harry Potter spell at them or whatever in Tagalog and try to freak them out. They painted this thing called the Eye of God on suspected Hooks' houses. And I think he made it up. I think it's just he did a lot of like research, but it's all like research done by a fucking white CIA guy. And there is, depending on who you're reading, disparate accounts of how much this shit actually worked. So eventually, Lansdale got really fixated on this sort of like cryptid type creature, a piece of horrific folklore in Filipino culture called Aswang. And the Aswang is, from what I understand, kind of an umbrella term for like a bunch of different types of beasts and spooky, creepy crawlies that visit you. It's very, you know, La Llorona sort of thing, fucking Jersey Devil, werewolf, whatever, right? Vampire. But because there are 7,000 islands or whatever in the fucking Philippines, there's not a uniform culture. There are different, you go to a different part of it and they have a different Aswang and a different language and stuff like that, and stuff shifts around. So there are all these different ones, and I guess rather than really try to replicate one of the actual existing pieces of folklore here, Lansdale decides to just find the one that's closest to being a vampire and then stage an Oswong, quote unquote, style vampire attack. I should be remarked here that he's doing this as like a psyop because he thinks that the locals will be scared if they think a vampire is on the loose. Very Scooby-Doo logic here by the CIA. And depending on who you read, they say this works or it doesn't. We'll talk about that a little later. Something really funny about this that I read while I was digging around about it is that this sort of like, I don't know, this sort of like point of view of condescension goes back, obviously, through the multiple waves of colonizer that hit the Philippines, right? So way back in like the 1500s, there's records of Spanish colonizers writing about this stuff and saying that they hear people talk about the Oswong, but in their opinions, they're not real. They're fables, and if the locals do believe in it, it's probably because they were tricked by the devil, who is real, right? Like, you understand the logic there? That's so strange. Is the fucking Spanish were like, oh, these dumb people believe in a vampire. They were tricked into believing it by the devil, right? Which the Spanish believe it. It's just mind bending to kind of think about, because it's like, how many layers are there to this Matryoshka doll? Is there any other person that doesn't believe in spooky, creepy crawlies in the story at all? Nope. Just the Spanish are just here to brutally establish which one you do believe in. Okay, so let's go through a few of the various Oswan, because they're really interesting. There's one that's called the Manananggal, and it is its thing is basically, it's said to have sort of been like it consumes organs, also phlegm. It loves to just suck bile out of people, like a grosser version of a vampire, and has this like long tongue that it can like sit on top of your house, and then like just the tongue comes through a hole in the ceiling and it can pierce you and then suck everything out. And in particular, its favorite organ it's said to feast on is the liver, which I find delightful as someone who thinks about alcohol a lot. So it also does this thing where it can turn into, almost all of them are like at various times appear as a beautiful woman is part of it, which is cool. And it does this thing called self-segmenting, which is where it like unscrews its torso off from its lower body, flies around on wings that it grows, searches for victims, and then comes home and lands back on its legs. Very cool. Manananggal. There's sort of like a there's a were dog. There's no wolves native to these islands, so there's not really like a werewolf. There's a were dog guy who turns into a dog. There are like various versions of Oswong that appear and can morph into dogs, pigs, and birds is the main one. There's another category that's just ghouls. They are described as humanoid, but generally hidden. Their diet consists of human corpses. They're carrion eaters. Their nails and teeth are sharp and strong, and that helps them consume corpses. Their diet makes them smell rank and pungent, and they gather in trees near cemeteries to exhume and consume the fresh burials. There is all sorts of interesting lore that attaches to this stuff. There's like a thing you can make out of boiling a coconut that you hang from a door, and it boils when an Oswong is near. If you see a dog or a cat or a pig with no tail, it's said to be an Oswong in disguise. There's some Oswongs that take the form of a witch and can be killed using a bolo knife if you strike in the middle of the witch's back. Crazy, fucking really fun shit. And then there are a few that kind of get into vampire territory. There's one called a Mandarugo, which is appears in the Blade anime, apparently. So gonna have to check that out. I've been watching Blade all October, and those movies fucking rule. They hold up, highly recommended. But anyways, as they get into vampire territory, right, you can kind of understand why this guy goes, okay, fuck it, we'll just fake a vampire attack. And what happens is he gets the CIA, gets a little crew organized, and they decide to sort of trail like these platoons of hooks and try to like grab one guy, as he gets too far away from the crowd. They create a horror film, right? Everybody goes, what the fuck happened to the guy in the back? He disappears. They kill the fighter, put 2 holes in his neck, right? Pierce 2 holes, fake the fuck there, shot him. Put 2 holes in his neck. I guess maybe they didn't shoot him. Maybe they actually killed him this way, now that I think about it, because the point is to find the body. Anyways, they would hang the guy upside down, drain his blood until he's bloodless, and then just like leave them out or leave them hanging and stuff like that, so that supposedly the superstitious locals would see this and think there's been a vampire attack. We should run for our fucking lives, right? Depending on where you read about this, some people say that they did this like a lot, like a ton, and it was this like crazy fucking, psychological warfare thing that was so successful that it turned the tide of the fucking war, or the whatever, it's just referred to historically as like I don't even know. Or the conflict, I guess you'd call it. I kind of think that sounds like bullshit. It sounds like it's giving the CIA way too much credit. It also sounds like the America just won here militarily, and while this weird CIA spook was just doing this, then it became part of the story here. So they had to. It makes the United States look better if they're like, oh, it was so powerful, but it sounds like they only have one instance of this happening. A lot of the stuff is in declassified CIA documents. That's my analysis, personally. They also assume this worked so well because if it did scare people, they assumed it was because the locals were scared of vampires, and not that they might just be afraid of the CIA sucking all your blood out through your neck, right? Or the Americans or whatever. The idea that it has to be that these people are like primitive or whatever is like, it's really funny. It might just be that they're like, shit, they're like torturing like brutally, gruesomely murdering fucking random people that they snatch up. Ugh. But again, it sounds like this kind of had nothing to do with it. Eventually, the U.S. wins this, conflict and establishes neoliberal extraction that we have today, puppet government, yada, 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 everything, right? The rest of that is kind of history. Taruk lives in various forms of rebellion, exile, imprisonment, and eventual amnesty throughout his life. He's got a little pretty interesting Wikipedia page you can scroll down. Depending on who's in power, he's, sentenced to certain like lengths of terms of imprisonment or whatever. And eventually, near the end of his life, he's getting amnesty. And like I said, Nelson Mandela wrote about him. He sort of like what do you call it? He revises his views late in life and claims that he was never a communist. He was a Christian democratic socialist the whole time, because that was part of what's going on here. I don't know. Interesting detail, in my opinion. Declassified CIA documents reveal that in the 1960s, Edward Geary Lansdale went on to be almost certainly employed by then-President JFK, or at least George McBundy, to attempt to assassinate Fidel Castro on intelligence that Cuba had acquired missiles from the Soviet Union. It's a pretty fucking crazy story, and I thought it actually seemed kind of timely as I walked around the city last night here in Los Angeles, home to so many Mexicans and other colonized people. living our lives under the looming, ominous full moon of fascism. I have to go now. There is a Mana non Galan sucking my liver out of my body, and my cat, Murray, is chewing on my arm. Thank you for listening to the show. Happy Halloween. This is functionally the end of our lunar year as a podcast. The new one starts tomorrow. For whatever reason, everything in my life revolves around this fucking holiday. It always will. I love it. If you enjoy the show, consider subscribing to our Patreon, hanging out with us on the Discord, commenting on the eps and stuff like that, and getting all the bonus content we put out, video, shit like that, bonus episodes. If you play music and you like the show, send some shit in. I'll play it at the end of an episode. And I don't know. If you like this at all, thank you for listening. It's finished.